It used to be very exciting. I remember when I was involved in the Maastricht debate.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 92, 93, and there was a bit of pushing and shoving, but that hasn't really happened since 1997 at all,
Right,
because
but let me
especially of
stop. Sorry,
late.
let me stop you there because this is why I wanted to connect the past with what's going on now. Certainly, I have friends in politics, many of whom were around at the time that you're talking about, and there were all sorts of things. Sometimes it would be promises of jobs. Sometimes it would be promises of even, investments in constituencies and so on and so forth, carrots and sticks. Or sometimes it would be, as was the case, you're talking about Maastricht, of having the whip removed. In other words, effectively, no longer being an official member of the party. That's the way the whips are operated.
That is an extreme thing, though, to
It
do.
is. It is an extreme thing, but the point is, they are the prefects of the party, and they have a number of
that's
tools
a fair.
at their disposal. So my question is this: the question and the extent to which this is a real story. Is it right to say? I mean, if there are these recordings of threats made by government whips, which apparently on the face of them are about having funding removed from various constituencies and so on and so forth, is this a story? Is it anything new? Is it worse in the Conservative Party?
Well, I think it was far worse than the Labour Party. There's a lovely story of Jack Straw when he was a new MP having his ghoulies grabbed by a particular whip. And Jack Straw saying with tears going down his face, "What are you doing this for?" And he says, "So you know that if you break the rules, it'll be even worse." Look, Christian Wakeford, who's the one who defected, said,
Right.
"Look, the whips threatened me that I couldn't get a school in a particular area if I voted against the government." Well, you know what? He did vote against the government and he did get that school. So that's nonsense. And now I have just found out in the last couple of hours
Mm-hmm.
that the committee, which William Wragg, who's made all these accusations, is the chairman of,
Right.
were completely unaware that he was going to make these accusations. But far more importantly, two members of the committee have immediately come out, or just come out, to say they know nothing about what he's talking about.
Right. Well, when that's the case, and he's held it back in order to, as a politician's way.
Yeah, but where's he getting the
Well, to get
information
maximum
from?
sort of news coverage. But my question is this, and we're talking about it, so it's obviously been effective. It could be a non-story. There may or may not be tapes of people being blackmailed.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately,
and
we're
William
talking.
Wragg, don't forget, has had
Well,
a
we're
vendetta.
talking. Well, we're talking about.
Hang on, Rob.
Yeah.
William Wragg has had a vendetta against. But for the last, I don't know what it's all about actually. For the last 9 months against Boris Johnson. So this is really just a continuation.
Well, but Michael Fabricant, can I just hold you down in this regard? How far would too far be? What you just talked about back in the day, or Jack Straw having your language, not mine, ghoulies held
Ghoulies,
by,
yes.
yeah, right, by the
I think in his book he wrote something beginning with B and ending in S.
Okay, but by the Labour heavy saying, you better well follow what we say, otherwise there'll be trouble. And we talked about what happened in Maastricht with the whip being removed and all sorts of threats. But we're talking now specifically, and you're right to say that there has been deliberate language use here, blackmail, inverted commas, blackmail. Now, it's all very well for the prefects of the party to use various methods to keep people in line. The question is, how far is too far? And what exactly would political blackmail be? In other words, I mean, you are a man who knows his own mind. Let me ask you this question. If a whip came up to you and said, "Listen, Michael Fabricant MP, and we're not just going to withdraw the whip, we are going to, for example, expose embarrassing text messages about you or photos that we may have of you," who knows?
Listen,
That's not. Well, wait a second.
I am so open, Rob. I don't think there's anything that I haven't already texted.
Right. I mean, you're an outlier to be sure, but that's different. The question is, that's not the work of a political party. That's what the mafia does, right?
Well, let's just see what happens. All these accusations are being made. Nobody seems to be at all aware of any specific examples. I mean, forget Boris saying he's unaware. People on the committee are unaware. The one thing that Christian Wakeford said has been proven to be incorrect because he did vote against the government, but he did get the school. Yes, of course, whips will try and use but I never had to do it. In the 7 years I was in opposition and then a government whip.
Yeah. Michael Fabricant,
I think the problem is, Rob, sorry. I think the problem is, I was involved in the production of the original BBC television series of House of Cards.
Right.
And I think most people think those who saw that wonderful series with Francis Urquhart, the character who was the whip and then became the Prime Minister. I think they think that's the way the whip's office worked. Some would say, if only it did.
Right. Well, that's I guess my question. And I remember I was presenting Good Morning Britain on the morning that the stories about parties broke. I remember being fairly skeptical that was going to be a story that was going to endure, and it really has, to say the very least. And it looks like it's been, to say the very least, Boris's Achilles heel. What's the feeling at the moment? I mean, you've got more than your ear to the ground. You are extremely plugged in to, interestingly, in your case, kind of both wings of the Tory party. You seem to have friends on both sides of it, the wets and the hards, whatever they're called nowadays. My question is, how does it feel to be a member of the Conservative Party? And do you think you're going to have a new boss in the form of Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss in the next 6 months?
Or indeed somebody completely different who we haven't thought of.
Going to put your hat in the ring?
No. I'm impressed, by the way, that you know that I'm a member of both the ERG and One Nation.
Right.
I'd love to know where you get your sources. You could become a whip, Rob. I think you've got good intelligence sources.
Research.
But where do I think it's going? I just truly don't know. Let's just see. I don't want to sound like a bore, and I never like to speak the party line, but it does make sense to say, OK, let's see what the Sue Gray report is like. Let's also see if there is a video. Let's, people bullying. Well, let's find out about it, because as the Speaker said, if that's been going on, it's a big if, it's not acceptable in this day and age.
Mm-hmm. So if there is a video of people being blackmailed, that would not be acceptable in this day and age.
What's the blackmail?
And somebody,
what's the blackmail?
If there's
what's blackmail? So give it, you could say, "Ooh, we would suggest that you could be a committee chairman and earn £15,000."
No, I think it's like it's a bit like the difference between erotica and porn. You know it when you see it, and what you've just said is you will know it when we see it, and we will know it when we see it, and the public won't tolerate it. And I think you've just put your position on the line. And I suspect, being a central member of the Conservative Party, what you've said and stated is that if it's bad, it will be bad for Boris. Always clear.